This morning, the Washington Post is reporting that, quote, some of the White House documents that Donald Trump improperly took to his Mar-a-Lago residence were clearly marked as classified, including documents at the top secret level. Joining us now is former White House press secretary Stephanie Grisham to talk about this. Stephanie, what did you think about this? I also want to mention you were the author of I'll Take Your Questions Now, what I saw at the Trump White House. What did you make of this report? And tell us how this hews to how he handled documents when you were at the White House.
You know, I wasn't surprised when I saw the report. I think that what's important is this is another example of a White House and an administration that just we had no rules. We followed no rules. Obviously, with this, I do think it should be looked into, but there's going to be a lot that goes into it. They may have been marked top secret, but had the president declassified them? Who packed them? What was the intent there? Was everything really returned? I think the point is, I know people are talking about, should he get in trouble legally for this? Which again, I do think it should be looked into because it's very, very serious. But I think this is also another example of what we do not want ever back in our government at the highest level in the White House again.
Stephanie, what did you personally see him do in terms? Was it a nervous tick, or was it because he wanted them out of circulation and destroyed?
I don't know the tick. I mean, it was something he always one night we were headed to the Middle East on one of our Christmas surprise Christmas troop visits, and I was sitting behind him watching him because there was nothing else to watch, and he was going through his boxes and he was keeping some things in a folder. He was signing some things. He was tearing some things up and throwing it on the floor, which was completely normal. He did that in the White House. He did that at the residence. And then he would tear up some pieces of paper, and I saw him put some of the torn up pieces of paper in his jacket inside pocket. And I remember at the time just thinking, I wonder why that's going in his pocket rather on the floor. There weren't alarm bells for me at the time because I was so used to seeing it, but I distinctly remember wondering why those torn up pieces went into his jacket. Maybe they were to be flushed down a toilet later. I don't know.
Okay, well, speaking of flushing down the toilet later, Maggie Haberman reporting that on multiple occasions there had to be a plumber or a technician come in because there were wads of paper in the pipes, the president's toilet specifically. Did you understand that that was something that went on, or was this news to you when you heard it?
That was news to me. It did not surprise me at all. You have to remember that the former president is a very, very paranoid man, and so that didn't surprise me at all, which is it's pretty bonkers, honestly. But I know that Maggie Haberman is very well sourced. I remember in the White House when a story would come out by Maggie, everybody was worried. So I trust that she probably had some very good sourcing there.
Paranoid how, Stephanie?
He didn't trust anybody. He didn't trust the people around him. He didn't trust some of, the people who were around him the most. There were just times when he would want to do things alone. Or again, I saw him meet Rudy Giuliani before in a room with literally nobody else in there. He was just a paranoid man. And for me, he was always that way. So it didn't set alarm bells off. But now that I've kind of stepped back and taken a break from this cult-like atmosphere, I'm now seeing how crazy and strange it all really was.
Congressional investigators, Stephanie, say that the White House call records that they now have from the National Archives do not have calls made to or from Trump during the attack on the Capitol. Can you illuminate his calling practices for us and why they may not be part of the record?
So, he was on the phone all the time, whether we were in the Oval Office or we were in the dining room, in the middle of something, he would yell out, get somebody on the phone, or he would take phone calls in the middle of meetings all the time. So I do find that those gaps are kind of odd. However, from all the reports that are out there, there were people frantically calling, asking for help and asking for him to do something. So I don't know this for a fact, but knowing him the way that I do, I imagine people were coming in and saying, so-and-so is on the phone, they want you to call it off, and he didn't want to. So if he didn't want to hear a message that somebody was saying, I'm sure he just didn't take the call. He also would use staffers' phones sometimes, so that could be something that was happening. Somebody that was in the room with him could have handed him a phone if somebody was calling in that regard. I do think it's very odd, and I hope that they can look into it and maybe piece some things together perhaps by getting other people's cell phone records.
Whose phones would he use? How would that work?
You know, again, anybody in the room, I'll just use Dan Scavino as an example because he was always in the room. But let's say Jared or Ivanka would have been in the room, and let's say, you know, McCarthy would have been calling, perhaps then Ivanka would hand the phone over and say, here you go. Or perhaps the president would have said no. You know, he did this all the time if he just didn't want to hear what somebody had to say. So in those moments, maybe he just didn't want to hear, you know, all these pleas for help because he was enjoying that people were fighting for him.
I will know you listed Dan Scavino and Ivanka. There are a couple people who are not cooperating, really, with the January 6th committee now, so that's notable.
Yes. And if you have nothing to hide, I don't understand why you don't just, you know, turn things over, say what happened, and move on with things.
Yeah, Trump certainly isn't standing for people doing that and still being an ally of his. We should mention as well. Stephanie, it's great to see you. Stephanie Grisham, former Trump White House press secretary. Thank you.